There we go. Greetings and welcome to Mount Olympus. I am Hercules Invictus, and today on Scholars from the Edge of Time, I am honored and privileged to be speaking with the one, the only, Nicholas Dayak. Greetings and welcome, Nicholas. How are you?
It's good to see you, sir. I'm doing pretty well, and I hope you are too.
I'm also doing well. Lots of exciting things going on, and we live during challenging and oft confusing times. So there's always a lot to do.
I would agree with that. Yeah, it's been very challenging out there, pandemic and other things, but at the same time, I think a lot of folks have been able to realize some projects they couldn't realize before. So I'll take the optimistic approach. I know in the last 2 years, Michelle and I have probably cranked up our output of projects and research and other things.
It's the same here. The pandemic was a horrible thing in very many ways, but as you say, it opened up doors to opportunity that otherwise might not have opened. And if you're someone who's always looking for opportunities, it was like a windfall in many ways.
Mm-hmm.
So I heard that you have lots of news to share.
Yeah. So I know we'll be talking about DragonHeart. Wait, there we go. Let's grab it. We'll be talking about DragonHeart in a little bit, but since the last time we talked, I've had a lot of projects and other stuff and findings going on. Some of it Sword and Sandal, some of it Sword and Sorcery, and some of it neither of above, but still interesting. So I'd figure I'd update folks on some happenings in the old Nick and Michelle household.
Awesome.
All right, so one, I have had a lot of articles pop up at my website, and in no particular order. First one I did, people seem to like it when I unbox things. Well, I know there's a lot of videos out there. People, ooh, I got a loot box. Let me see what's in it. But the aughts, back in the 2000s, that was the era of the DVD with the luxurious box sets and special editions, and that's kind of gone away now. Most things are streaming and digital only, but yeah. I still like physical media, and I'm a sucker for limited edition stuff. So I was out at a used record store and I found the giant Hur Box Set.
Oh, awesome.
So I figured, people like to see what's inside these things. I did one on Troy. I did one on a folk horror box set. So I did a little unboxing of this Hur box set. So I've got that at my website. So, Ben-Hur has been released how many times over the decades? VHS, Laserdisc, DVD, Blu-ray, but yeah, so, books and other things are inside that. So I have an article on my website looking at that. Okay, what's the next thing? All right, not Peplum related, but I just did a book review on a book called Art Boozle. Okay. And it looks at artists from the last 100 years. So these are more contemporary artists, Roy Lichtenstein and, Andy Warhol on the cover. And it creates cocktails for all these artists, not necessarily cocktails that they would have drank, but like this is a cocktail that embodies what this artist did, inspires, and what he kind of creates. I think I could best sum it up. There's an artist named Banksy out there who does all that street art, and no one knows who he is. Well, he's got a cocktail in here, and the cocktail is basically a sour that has an egg foam on top, but you put a stencil and you mix bitters through it. So it recreates kind of what Banksy does. So, and we've talked about before, I'm into cocktails and tiki culture. So when I plucked this up, I really enjoy trying to recreate some of the interesting cocktails in it. And I say that interesting because there are stuff I wouldn't normally do. Like there was like a vodka margarita type cocktail. Like who makes a vodka margarita? Tequila goes into margarita. So I really enjoyed it. So I've got that at my website. Back to Peplum. I did a interview with the writer and artist of the Edgar Rice Burroughs comic, I Am a Barbarian. So it's a big box set, a big slipcase that came out. I got this nice, luxurious cover, but go away. Okay, something fell out. But it's a Peplum comic. Let me see if I can find a nice Roman looking page. Here we go. There's people standing around doing, things. But Edgar Rice Burroughs wrote a sword and sandal novel called I Am the Barbarian
I
way
read
back
it
when.
years ago.
Well, um, I haven't read it. This is on the to be read pile, but I definitely needed it because I do like my Peplum comics. But the Edgar Rice Burroughs Incorporated, they turned it into an online web comics. I think every week a new strip came out, and it was written by I should know this because I interviewed the people, but let me look at my notes real quick. Tom Simmons and Mike Dubish. And now the webcomic has ended its run. And so they've collected all the strips into a nice hardback graphic novel of sorts. Kind of makes me think of when Frank Miller's 300 came out. It was a big oversized hardback. So I just did an interview with them, their motivation for doing it. Have they been inspired by other sword and sandal things? And so that's at my website. So this is probably the next big comic I'll be reading. Let me put that back. So
if I remember that I'm a Barbarian took place during Roman times, I believe during the reign of Caligula, and the barbarian was his Celto-Germanic bodyguard that the historical Attila had, that pops up in the background of movies about Attila. I'm sorry, about Caligula.
Yeah, I mean, the quick plot synopsis I read was, he's a barbarian and enslavement of Caligula. And so, as we all know, Caligula was not a very, very nice guy.
No.
So it'll be a good comic to read. But I had the honor to interview the creative team behind it. So, doing my best to promote the project and also promote, the genre. Also related to Peplum Comics. Now, I haven't written anything on this, but we did an interview maybe last year where I talked about Valor from EC Comics.
Yes, I remember.
And there's quite a few sword and sandal and also medieval and Viking comics that, they put out. And this is a great series. Well, I was at the bookstore a couple weeks ago looking at the comics, and there was another EC Comics collection from Dark Horse called Two-Fisted Tales, and it's about war comics. And I'm not really into war comics. They're a little jingoistic for me, but I took a thumb through it, and sure enough, it's war comics from not just World War II. That's most of them, but there's some pirate adventures and stuff. But I found out there is a Peplum comic in it called Pigs of the Roman Empire.
Aha.
So had to pick that up and add it to the collection. So another sword and sandal comic that EC put out. They did a whole bunch of comics right before they kind of went under. And Valor was one of their lines. And it was right before the sword and sandal craze happened with Ben-Hur and Hercules and all that stuff. I feel like if they could have only held on for a couple more years, they could have ridden that wave, but that didn't happen. All right. Sorry, keep looking. I have a pack of stuff here.
While you're looking, have you seen Thor: Love and Thunder yet?
No, I have not, but I want to. I want to see Thor Ragnarok first, though.
Okay.
But it looks good. I mean, I like the character Thor and all the commercials and stuff I see. I mean, I've read a couple Thor comics. I mean, we talked about a long time ago, there was an Easter Island Thor comic that had the faces coming alive and stuff, but no, I haven't seen it yet.
They brought Peplum into the Marvel universe. They had Zeus, Dionysus, Artemis, and a bunch of other Greek gods. And then in one of the end credits, Hercules.
Oh, really?
So that's entered the MCU now.
Well, I know, Hercules has been a Marvel character for a long, long time. I mean, I've got some of the old school comics of it, but I never, I didn't think he was, let's be honest, popular enough to enter the greater MCU. So I'm glad that he is. That's so cool. Yeah. All right. So next on the list is for Michelle and I. We have our own podcast, called HP Lovecast, where we talk about Lovecraft stuff. We just did an episode on this book called Even in the Grave. It's actually short ghost stories. And we talked about two stories in it. Where are they? Blind Spot by Steve Van Patten and What's Your Secret by Trevor Firetog. And that episode's up, and we actually interviewed them and the editor, Carol Geisender. That will go up at the end of this month. So, that's part of our Lovecraft programming, although this is ghost stories, so not really Lovecraftian, but, we cover horror too.
When is I can see, knowing you as I do over some time now, I can see a tiki Lovecraftian horror book with cocktail recipes in it.
It's been on the to-do list. Lovecraft stuff is so tiki adjacent. In fact, there is a company called Horror in Clay, and they make Lovecraft tiki mugs and stuff. And I have a few, and Michelle's got me a few for my birthday. Come on, the city of Ryla and the South Pacific and all that stuff. It's total tiki. And there hasn't really been an overt Lovecraft tiki thing out there. Although I've written a short tiki Lovecraft story. It's in one of my books. So someday it's on the to-do. I wouldn't mind doing a book about, the influence of Lovecraft in tiki culture. What's that horror film? A Creature from the Black Lagoon. That's practically a deep one who worships Dagon, and that's the creature's kind of a mascot of Gothic tiki out there. So someday the to-do list keeps growing.
Mine does as well.
Let's see. Next project I'm working on is I got asked by a publisher to do a write-up of a book, which I already had, but Sylvia Christel of Emmanuel fame. And that's a big honor, just to have the publisher reach out and ask if I could do a write-up on it. I'm a big fan of the Emmanuel films of the 70s and stuff. So that's probably the next thing that will pop up on my writings, is a very in-depth book review on that. The other project I'm working on is, and I think I brought this up, last year I did a presentation on a German band that would sample the TV show Vikings into their music.
Yes.
And I did an academic presentation on it. Well, I'm actually finally getting around to editing that for a journal. And so the only CD I have on me is this Totem Obscura. It's a side project that does medieval electronic music. That's a side project of the band I've been looking at. So this will be additional subject matter of, not just Vikings, but I got medieval stuff here. So we'll see if that gets incorporated in. I think finally, the last thing, it's two things I want to bring up. I think the last time we talked, I said I was playing a video game called A Plague's Tale.
Yes.
And that was the Black Plague during medieval France. There's the French Inquisition going around and, killing people, and these siblings are trying to, survive, and they've got, secret occult powers. And I've almost finished the game. I'm at the final boss, but he kicked my butt. So I'll finish it later this week. But it was a really good story. It was nice to play a historic epic that was in a time period I don't know much about. But yeah, I really liked the Plague Tale. I always think of Spanish Inquisition. I didn't realize that there was a lot of other Inquisitions out there. So that was kind of eye-opening. But basically, I'm at the end of that game, so I decided to start a new game called Dragon Lapis, which is a sword and sorcery game, and kind of the old Dragon Warrior games on the Nintendo. And unfortunately, this game is terrible, but I feel compelled to see it through. But its characters are unlikable. The story is atrocious. It's incredibly easy. So don't recommend that one. I don't have a box for that one because it's a digital game, but it's basically, if you play Dragon Warrior on the old Nintendo, it's like grid-based role-playing game. It's like that, but bad. So that's been a summation of kind of what I've been up to, articles at my website, stuff I've been researching and reading, and stuff coming out.
That is incredibly awesome. And as always, you're keeping busy and your creative output is flowing out there and blessing us all with your creativity.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I'm hoping to get some more stuff out there. I'm still waiting on the Twilight Zone book to come out that has my essay on it. The Gladiator book. Oh, I've been waiting for that one for a while. It's sitting there with the publisher, and then time to move on to the next book, which I've been kind of sheepishly putting off to do all kind of the smaller stuff. So I'll hunker in and get the next book up and running, whatever it may be.
And have you and Michelle given any presentations recently? I know that you give a lot of presentations at conventions and you host panels.
The last one we gave was in May at StokerCon for our Anne Radcliffe conference, but we do have some presentations coming up. We will both be panelists at a local convention. It'll actually be our first convention appearance in 3 years, because the pandemic's going on. So we're still a little paranoid about it, but there's a sci-fi fantasy convention down here called CocoCon, and it's more of a fan convention, in the older 70s and 80s sense. So it's not like a comic book con or anything like that, but we'll be panelists at that con talking about, we'll be on a Lovecraft panel, a sword and sorcery panel, and a pre-code Hollywood horror panel. So and that's over Labor Day weekend. Michelle is working on a presentation for the upcoming Mid-Atlantic Popular and American Culture Association conference. And that's the one I presented at last year on that Viking band. I don't know if I'll present this year or not. We'll see. But Michelle's working on a presentation for that. And then we've both been invited to do readings for a YouTube channel called Galactic Terrors. So that's in the fall. We'll be sharing some of our nonfiction work there. So we got a lot of stuff coming up.
It sounds like it. I lost the picture on this site. I don't know what happened. Let me see if I can try to get it back.
No worries. I can still see you just fine.
Okay, awesome. Wow, it sounds like a lot is going on.
Yeah. But today, for this evening, we're going to talk about DragonHeart.
Did you get the collector's edition? Even though I love the first one, I didn't particularly care for the second and third one. Oh, so you have the collector's edition. I have 5 movies.
My friend, you were talking about Thor: Love and Thunder earlier, that there's a Marvel Cinematic Universe. There is a DragonHeart Cinematic Universe, believe it or not. I have not seen the sequels or prequels. I've only seen the first one, but hey, it was cheap. All the movies are there. There's probably something of interest to write about in the other movies. Because, I like to see what other people, say about things. That didn't sound very fun. Anyway, so yeah, I got the 5 movie pack that has 5 DragonHearts, but yeah, we'll be talking about numero uno, which is, from what I heard, the best one, and they typically are. So let's start with a plot synopsis. All right. Bowen is a knight under the let's try that again. Bowen is a knight under a tyrant Saxon king, but Bowen is noble and follows the teachings and creed of King Arthur. Bowen is trying to teach the Arthurian ways to Prince Einon, who is a ruthless tyrant in the making. Despite the obvious that his character is awful, Bowen and the queen just can't see that this kid is a bad apple. So when Einon accidentally gets impaled on a house strut during a peasant revolt against his father, he is rushed to the dragon Draco, who brings the kid back to health by giving him a bit of his heart. This makes the evil kid more or less immortal, because as the dragon lives, so shall Prince Einon. So Einon takes up being an evil king in his father's stead and enslaves the populace to rebuild some Roman ruins. Now, Bowen, who still doesn't think Einon is pure evil, he instead thinks it's the dragon's doing. So he's the one that made the prince bad. Obviously, this prince can't be bad. He is. He's totally bad. He looks terrible. He looks evil. He looks like a Disney villain. But he swears to hunt down all the dragons. And 12 years pass, and he does. Bowen is now a mercenary, and he's killing dragons for money. So Bowen gets into combat with the last dragon, Draco. But their epic battle comes into a stalemate, with Draco about to eat Bowen, and Bowen about to impale the roof of Draco's mouth with his sword. So they come to a deal. Draco will attack villages and Bowen will pretend to kill him and get the money. And this works for a while. They actually pull this off many times. So, of course, while this is going on, the peasants of the kingdom are still oppressed. And one of them, Kara, meets up with Bowen and Draco. She's like, join my fight. And he's like, no, I'm disillusioned. I don't care about the old ways of chivalry. But then they all fly to Avalon, and Bowen is like, oh yeah, I do care about it now. So Kara rounds up the peasants, and they're like, we have to revolt again. And the peasants are like, no, we got our butts kicked last time. And then Kara and Bowen are like, but we've got a dragon. And the peasants are like, duh. So there's a big attack on Ion's castle, and the peasants kick butt while Draco lobs fireballs. But eventually he gets captured. So Bowen breaks into the castle to try and free Draco, but Draco says as long as he lives, so does the evil Prince Einon. So sad, Bowen has to kill his dragon friend, but that also kills the evil prince. It's a little sad, but Draco's soul flies up to the stars and joins his other ancestral dragon friends.
And becomes a constellation Draco, and they dwell on that for a few minutes.
They do. So, original viewing. I saw this movie like 25 years ago. I either saw it on VHS or HBO, and I remember some of the key scenes of it, but not the movie as a whole. But I remember liking it when I was a kid. Revisiting it now, it still holds up. It's actually pretty good. I had forgotten just how funny the film is. It's really funny because it's not a buddy cop film like Lethal Weapon and 48 Hours, but it kind of feels that way. You know, you've got Dennis Quaid as the good cop, Draco as the unhinged cop, or maybe vice versa, and they're teamed up together and hilarity ensues. That's what it's like. It's like a buddy cop film, but with dragons. But it's funny. The scene where like Bowen and Draco, they're at their stalemate, and his sword is up in Draco's mouth, and Draco's about to clamp down on him. It's a hilarious scene, and he's talking like his mouth is open in that Sean Connery voice. I can't impersonate John
It
Connery.
actually was Sean Connery too.
Yeah. Oh, it's totally Sean Connery. I mean, that's the big draw. You've got 007 playing a dragon. The funny thing is that scene, beside it being funny, there's a between the teeth of Draco's mouth, there's like a skeleton hand, and Bowen's like, let me get rid of that for you. And he's like, oh, thank you. And you know what? That has shades of it's that old fable in Hercules. I'm mispronouncing that, and my notes are bad. Hold on. Oh, Androcles in the lion, where the lion has the thorn in his paw and plucks it out, and now they're best friends. So there's kind of a Androcles and the lion thing going on between Bowen and Draco. The CGI in the film, it holds up okay. I mean, this movie is 5 years before Lord of the Rings, which kind of shifted what sword and sorcery movies could look like. So to me, it was done by Industrial Light and Magic, and they're the ones that did Jurassic Park. I mean, Jurassic Park, the dinosaurs are up front and close. It's not like a traditional like monster movie where you keep the monster in the shadows like Jaws or other monsters and you show them only at the end. You can't do that in a dinosaur movie. You got to show off the dinosaurs. It's all the same thing with DragonHeart. It's called DragonHeart. There's a dragon in it. You got to see the dragon. And I think especially for the time, the CGI for the dragon looks good, especially since this is not like a big CGI film, because most fantasy movies now, post Lord of the Rings are green screen. And that's not bad because you can, realize some really impressive, city-wide architecture and vast mountains and other things that you don't really exist in real life. But at the same time, watching DragonHeart, everything else in it's real. The real sets are matte paintings, real locations and all that stuff. It's kind of like the old sword and sorcery films of the 80s. If the sword and sorcery films of the 80s, like the Deathstalkers, are like low budget B films, DragonHeart to me is just a B sword and sorcery film that has a budget. And even though I call it sword and sorcery. I mean, there's no wizards, but the dragon casts spells. So yeah, it's just a big budget sword and sorcery movie, just like Gladiators is the big budget sword and sandal film. If you could get away with making that film a long time ago with that budget, you would have. So yeah, so rewatching DragonHeart, I dug it. Is it a neo-peplum? Kinda. It came out before Gladiator. There's that kind of a gray area of, the old Italian peplum was kind of expanded to include the costume dramas of the era, the swashbuckler films, the pirate films, the medieval films, because, they're all made with the same directors, actors, and production companies. So, sometimes folks will lump in the sword and sorcery and the medieval into peplum and neo-peplum. And yeah, I'm down with that. So to me, this is kind of before Gladiator took off. This would be a proto neo-peplum.
I agree with you. I remember seeing it in the theaters when it first came out. Then I saw it on VHS, and I had a copy on VHS. Then I had a copy on DVD. Then when the collection came out, I got the collection, and I watched 2 of the sequel prequels, and then kind of gave up on it. But I remember when I first saw it, I was very impressed. The draw was that it was a dragon. Was post-Arthurian times, and that Sean Connery voiced the dragon, and it really came out of nowhere when the dragon and the knight errant cooperated to swindle people throughout the kingdom. That was a interesting twist that I didn't see coming ahead of time. This is pre-internet, so there weren't all these spoilers and things and leaks going out there, and that and Dragon Slayer, I believe it's called Dragon Slayer, but again, I might be mistaken, were my 2 favorite dragon movies at the time.
No, I'd agree with your assessment on DragonHeart. I mean, even revisiting it, some of the stuff came out of left field, but yeah, just the 2 pairing up. I mean, they're enemies, that they become frenemies, the good cop, bad cop, and that, yeah, swindling other people. I mean, you can make that into even though they made sequels and stuff that are apparently atrocious, that could actually be a pretty cool premise for a TV show, like kind of Hercules and Xena of the era of a knight errant and a dragon. Every episode they visit a new town to swindle, but something else happens. Yeah, it could be good. It's funny you bring up the Arthur stuff because the King Arthur stuff that's kind of considered neo-peplum because it came after the fall of the Roman Empire, and this movie it's an Arthurian movie. It's definitely a post-Arthurian movie, so I would lump it in as part of the matter of Britain. Just like the very tail end of it, they go to Avalon. The ghost of King Arthur does inspire Bowen to resume his, chivalric ways. So, you could lump this with the matter of Britain, just like any other kind of King Arthur or Merlin story out there. And I think that's kind of cool.
Yeah, that's why I always lumped it. I always lumped it with post-Arthurian, and when I had a shelf with the Arthurian stuff, I had it in there with the Arthurian stuff.
Yeah. There's some other movies that DragonHeart makes me think of, some other kind of sword and sorcery films, specifically Army of Darkness and Beastmaster. Both of those films end with, the protagonist gathers all the peasants who don't know how to fight and just overnight teaches them how to fight. It's a kind of silly thing that, harkens back to Seven Samurai. They're protecting the villagers and they kind of teach the villagers a little bit how to defend themselves. And I just equated DragonHeart to Seven Samurai by way of Army of Darkness, but it has that kind of I'm going to say bloodline to it. It's a little silly, but I think that's part of what makes it very kid-friendly and fun, because it's a PG-13 film. It's not like a gritty Deathstalker film of the 80s. It's not really bloody. There's not any like decapitations it's a fire-breathing dragon. You can actually show, a person's corpse going, but they don't do that. They kind of keep it pretty lighthearted, and I think that's a good route to go.
I think so too.
But it also, even though it's a sword and sorcery film, and there is, a maiden of sorts in it. That's Kara, played by the same lady that was in Starship Troopers, and she was much better in that film. There's no love interest in this film. She doesn't throw herself at Boeing. Oh, Boeing, I love you now, and kisses and smooches and stuff. And it's always, I like that. Not that I don't dig love stories, but a lot of times they shoehorn a love story into an action film, and it usually becomes, the guy's journey, and that's, synonymous with getting the lady back. And it's nice that, it doesn't have to follow the typical Hollywood formula. And I mean, the old Peplum films, Hercules didn't carry, various ladies with him around and stuff like that. So it's a pure, focus on the hero type story. Now it does come at the detriment that the lady characters are not very well developed in this film at all, but it's nice that it doesn't follow the normal Hollywood formula. I'd say if there's a fault with the film is that the characters, speaking of characters, they are incredibly naive. The prince, Einon, he's totally evil, and they got an actor to play him that looks evil. He's slimy looking and scrawny looking, and he looks like a villain from like an old Disney film, not like a newer Disney film, but like of the 60s and 70s, the Sword and the Sorcerer type animation, where you have like a villain that looks just not very attractive. We'll put it that way. And that's this kid. And I mean, there's even the scene where they're taking him to see Draco to bring him back to life. And I mean, he's still holding like the crown in his hands. I'm like, what? How do you don't do that? I mean, you're just projecting to the world that you're greedy and evil and lusting for power. But Bowen and his mom, the queen, are like, no, he's really good. And I've been teaching him the ways of the old code and Arthurian. I'm like, the kid's evil. Can't you see that? And, when he comes back to life and he's being a tyrant like his dad, Bowen's even then he's like, you can't possibly be evil. It's the dragon's fault. And I'm like, dude, this is a little too naive for you. Come on. So I would say that's kind of the only fault in the film. I mean, the main villain, he's like Malcolm McDowell from Clockwork Orange. He just looks evil, except Malcolm McDowell has a lot more charisma than this guy. Let's see what else I got. I took a lot of notes in the film. The movie has Pete Postlethwaite in it, playing Brother Gilbert, who is the chronicler of these adventures. So folks who watch The Witcher, there's Jaskier the Bard who's singing the songs of The Witcher. It's the same type of character. And Pete Postlethwaite is basically gold in everything he's in. I mean, I remember him from Usual Suspects mostly, but he's been in a lot of Peplum, the Clash of the Titans remake, Solomon Kane, King David. And to me, it's like the movie Gladiator. I mean, at the time Gladiator came out, it was still early, like in Russell Crowe's career and Joaquin Phoenix's career. So, how do you support a movie like that? Well, you get some veteran actors who have done their fair share of historic epics. Like Gladiator had Oliver Reed and Ralph Moeller. And so I think having a character like Brother Gilbert, played by Pete Postlethwaite, adds to, anchoring this film down. It's a fantastical film, but, to kind of ground it in a little bit of the genre. And I think his character does that. I mean, he's also the character that's going to tell the stories and, down the road of the deeds of Bowen and the dragon, all that stuff. So it's kind of an important role. And, Pete Postlethwaite is like the perfect character for it. So I've been dancing around the important thing, and that's the dragon, Draco, Sean Connery. And this is not the debonair 007 Connery. This is more of the Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade Sean Connery, the more sly, kind of winking at the audience Sean Connery, who's having a lot of fun. And I dig that. I've always put Sean Connery in the the James Bond crowd, because I mean that's even when I watch something like Zardoz, to me he's still as silly as that movie is, he's still a serious character in it. So seeing him kind of more in a cartoony role, because you could make Dragonheart, you could rotoscope it like Fire and Ice by Ralph Bashki and have a pretty good cartoon, I think.
I think so.
So yeah, I think Connery as the dragon, he's got his iconic Scottish voice. I mean, that's a dragon voice. I mean, it's perfect. The dragon looks good, he sounds good, and I was watching it for Michelle, and Michelle's like, I haven't seen this movie in years, and I know he's going to die, and I'm not going to be very happy about that. So that's Dragonheart in a nutshell. It's a proto-neopeplum, part of the Manor of Britain. It's basically a live-action sword and sorcery cartoon that is pretty darn good for a pre-Fellowship of the Rings type film. I mean, then Lord of the Rings would come out, and now the bar had been greatly shifted for what you could do for a fantasy film, and now it's shifted even more. Game of Thrones and The Witcher. I mean, can you put Game of Thrones in the same bucket as Dragonheart? I mean, I don't mean that in quality sense. I mean, just like tonal sense. I mean, one's very fantastical and adventurous, and the other one is gritty Game of Thrones.
And that journey's begun again. The new series based on the prequel to Game of Thrones coming out very soon.
Hey, if they can make prequels for Dragonheart, they'll find a way to mine Game of Thrones to make side stories, and that's what I heard is that they're doing prequels to it. I'm ambivalent to it because I actually haven't watched Game of Thrones. So
you haven't watched it? Oh, okay.
I have not. I mean, did you see the giant stack? I have so much media to consume. But one of these days I'll get around to watching it.
You mentioned Zardoz. I like really quirky movies, and Zardoz has got to be one of the quirkiest movies I've seen. I remember when it first came out, and the advertisements for it in the subways was they had the Zardoz head, and the advertisement said, "I saw the future and I didn't like it." And even as a youth, when Zardoz came out, I didn't think that was a very effective way to advertise the movie. But I saw Zardoz in theaters, and I had the Playboy issue, that kind of preceded the theatrical release. And I really enjoyed Zardoz. And seeing Sean Connery in a futuristic barbarian getup, that was part of the attraction.
I didn't know about that for the advertisement for Zardoz, but I know sometimes negative attention only helps, not necessarily the so bad it's good type sense, but I'm thinking of the movie David Lynch's Lost Highway, and I'm a big David Lynch fan. And I remember the promotional stuff for that said, Siskel and Ebert give it 2 thumbs down. That's 2 reasons to see Lost Highway. So that's what that means. I'm actually a fan of Zardoz as well. It is, to me, it's Sword and Planet adjacent. To me, it's got that kind of John Carter vibe. So that means there's a little bit of sword and sandal going through it. But yeah, it is out there. If I did drugs, I would probably appreciate the movie even more because it is psychedelically weird, but I dig it. And I'm down with Zardoz. We have a copy somewhere. We've watched it a couple times. And plus it's got Sean Connery and Charlotte Rampling. It's always weird when you have some big actors that appear in some kind of esoteric films. Nick Cage is like the person of our era to do that. He's been appearing in a lot of, it's a Nick Cage film? Okay. Mandy. That's a sword and sorcery film too.
One of my favorite weird, I like the Forbidden Zone. That's one of my favorite movies. That's very bizarre. And one of my other favorite movies, very ultra low budget, but it was funny. I thought it was funny, called Psychos in Love. And I used to have that on VHS. It got destroyed, and I've been looking for it on DVD. It never came out on DVD, and I found it on YouTube recently. So I've been recommending that highly. It's again ultra low budget, but it's very cleverly done.
That sounds like a Ted V. Mickles type film. I have not heard Psychos in Love, but I know Forbidden Zone very well. I actually met Richard Elfman at San Diego Comic-Con way back in 2008, and he autographed my copy of Forbidden Zone. So, oh yeah, I mean, that's another movie that if I had done drugs, I would appreciate even more because it's so outlandish. And hey, there's a Hercules in that film too.
Yes, there is. I've always classed that with Hercules in the underworld, like Machiste in the underworld and Hercules in the underworld. It's a Hercules family, and
Yeah.
they're very diverse, and they have the underworld beneath their house. And Grandpa Hercules goes down there and beats things up and does a lot of other weird things as well.
I mean, hey, if you think about it, Richard Elfman is a pretty singular filmmaker, and Mario Bava was as well. So why not?
They were making a sequel, but I don't think it got up off the ground. They colorized the Forbidden Zone. I was concerned about that, but the colorized version looks fine.
Mm-hmm.
And then I heard rumors of a sequel, and they had some pictures up. It didn't look anything like the first. It was kind of ultra low budget and cheesy, whereas the first one was brilliant. Like it's like a Fleischer cartoon come to life. But other than a few like clips, it never seemed to go anywhere.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
Yeah.
I'd give it a shot, just like I would give DragonHeart sequels a shot one of these days.
There was a lot of interesting DragonHeart merchandise. I remember when it came out. There were like dragon figures and all sorts of things. If I recall correctly, one of them talked with Sean Connery's voice. So I remember there was a lot of merch. And back when I was DMing for people my own age, rather than much younger people, I used to include characters from these films, in my game. And I'm sure Draco appeared a few times.
Oh, very cool. I don't remember the merchandising of the era. I just remember Star Wars, what was it? Not Phantom Menace. Shadows of the Empire was out at the same time, and that overtook everything for me.
Well, that was brilliant. The marketing for Shadows of the Empire. It's like, let's pretend we had a movie and put out lots of merchandise for it.
No, it worked. Let's do everything to make a movie without actually making the movie. I mean, the game was awesome, the book was awesome, the soundtrack was killer, and the figurines were great. So yeah, no, I now I kind of wish that there was a Shadows of the Empire film. No more Dash Rendar out there. I thought he was a good Han Solo surrogate.
Yeah, I thought so too, and I thought it was brilliant where they fit it into the story, and it really added to the Star Wars saga. That got destroyed in the flood, but I used to have all the Shadows of the Empire things. I had the book, the games. I had the strategy guide for the games. I had the novelization of the game. I had the comic books.
Now, you know what? That would be, Star Wars has the Sword and Planet bloodline to it. Maybe that'll be something to revisit down the road on one of these programs of Shadows of the Empire, because it's been forgotten. With Disney acquiring Marvel, they put that stuff all in a Legends category, and they're not touching it. And so, right, wrong, or indifferent, today's audience is growing up with the newer films, and that's fine. But I think it'd be nice if they just saw how awesome Shadows of the Empire was. So maybe that might be a future episode. I have to dig out my stuff for it as well.
They published a book that took place in the same period and kind of replaced that story. But the book that they put out didn't hold a candle to the Shadows of the Empire. And Zesor, he was an interesting villain, and his rivalry with Darth Vader. And he knew that he was Anakin Skywalker and all this stuff. Great fun.
Oh no, you know what? The old expanded universe, there was some garbage, but there was also a lot of good stuff. And Shadows of the Empire was definitely that. And man, we got way off topic from DragonHeart. That's fine. The Heir to the Empire trilogy by Timothy Zahn. That was like legit writing, legit good. exactly what Star Wars needed at the time to come back to life.
And they brought the character, that's with Thrawn. Right? It's been a while since I read Star Wars. Yeah, they brought Thrawn into the official Star Wars universe with Disney.
Yeah, I don't think Heir to the Empire is canon, but the character is, and they just put him in different situations from what I heard. And I'm down with that because that was a well-written villain. I mean, even better than Vader and Prince Caesar and the Emperor. I mean, I was rooting for him because he was just that cool in the series of books.
Yeah, I kind of we've been watching the new series as they've been coming out on Disney Plus, and again they're okay, and they're entertaining, but the rewatchability, I don't have any desire to watch them again once I've watched them. Like with some things in the MCU, ooh, I like, an MCU bombs out every now and then, but they have high rewatchability because everything's connected in all these like really intricate ways, and most of them are really well done.
Oh, very cool. Yeah, I mean, I haven't watched too much MCU. I do like the Doctor Strange stuff, and I do want to see the new one because it's got Evil Dead director, and all of a sudden I forget his name. Sam Raimi. Sam Raimi behind it, and I am team Sam Raimi. I mean, well, Army of Darkness. We talked about Army of Darkness later, which is a watermark in awesome cinema. I stand by that.
There's Evil Dead Easter eggs in the Multiverse of Madness.
Oh, cool. I heard the car made it in because I think Sam Raimi has the same car in everything. And I think even in his Western, I forget what his Western's called, all of us. Quick and the Dead, someone said that the car is even hidden in there somewhere.
Annabelle, I found out, the doll from the movie. She's in a lot of films as well, if you look. And an interesting fact about my journey, back in the day when my show was on TV, filmmakers, indie filmmakers used to play like Where's Waldo with me. So they'd stick me in my barbaric finery in like crowd scenes and, in offices or someplace, and just to see if anybody would catch my being somewhere in the picture. So I don't even remember what these films were called or if they ever made it to distribution, but that was a lot of fun to do for a few years.
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah, I still hold hope that Troma will release a something that has your footage in it.
Yeah, that was Tales from the Crapper. They filmed a bunch of scenes.
Okay, not because I bought that film hoping to find you in a deleted scene. It's not a good film. I have Tales from the Crapper in my collection now, but there's still hope that Troma will. I mean, they got that giant library of everything, and they reuse footage from a lot of stuff. So cross my fingers that Thor the Barbarian might appear in a Poultrygeist 3 or something.
Or something. Something to strive for. Maybe I can invite you and Michelle, and we can have cinematic adventures together. Yeah, I met Lloyd, and Lloyd was in a few of my TV shows. He was in my movie, and he used to send over like Kabuki Man and the Toxic Avenger and like other people to be on my show when I had the studio show in New York before the one that was on cable. And he used to send like the Naked Cowboy who sang things, and it was a lot of fun. And Lloyd, when there was a gathering of some sort for one of their movies, he would, when he'd say who's in the audience, he'd always say me first. Oh, we have in the audience Thor the Barbarian. Everyone's saying, who the hell's Thor the Barbarian? But Lloyd would always like pitch me first. Then I'd have like people from like Hollywood Reporter and stuff trying to figure out who I was and why Lloyd kept announcing me. But it was a lot of fun. He was a great person and very entertaining.
Yeah, I've heard nothing but good things about Lloyd and like what he does for indie cinema. I've met him twice at 2 Comic Cons. I met him back at San Diego, had my picture with him, and about 10 years later, I met him again, and I printed out my picture and like, can you sign it? So he's like, absolutely. So yeah, no, he was a friendly, very hyper and energetic guy.
Yes.
I mean, well, he's also there to, be the face of Troma, be energetic, and sell, surf Nazis must die and Troma's war.
Yeah, those are fun times, and he's a fun person. I was thinking of reaching out to him just to get an interview and an update.
You should.
Your future, yeah.
I think he just had a new movie come out within the last few months that's a Troma take on Shakespeare. And I know he's been appearing on different podcasts to promote it and stuff. So, you gotta do the hustle and everything. So you should totally reach out to him and say, hey, remember me? Do you want to talk about your Shakespeare film?
Well, they did Romeo and Juliet years ago.
Oh, that's right. No,
and I think that's where James Gunn got his start, if I remember correctly.
You are 100% correct on that one, but Troma, because no, I forgot all about Romeo and Juliet, but no, there's a brand new film. Oh man,
I gotta look it up.
Yeah, I'm looking it up.
Oh, okay.
I totally forgot what it's called. Oh well. Troma. Shh. Okay, am I allowed to swear?
Yeah.
It's called Shakespeare's Shitstorm.
Okay.
There we go. It's a remaking of The Tempest.
I definitely have to see it. I love Romeo and Juliet, and I talked to the actors, and again, I'm not 100% positive, but if I remember correctly, James Gunn got involved with Romeo and Juliet, and that was his first film of note.
Before he got really, really big, he had a website back in the 2000s before social media and stuff. People actually had websites, and you could actually contact people through them. And I wrote James Gunn and asked him, hey, could I send you my copy of Slither to autograph? And he wrote back and said, absolutely. And, this is late 2000s, so well before Guardians of the Galaxy and stuff. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I sent my copy of Slither, and I also sent my Dawn of the Dead because he wrote that. And sent them back all autographed and everything. So I don't think you could do that today, but I think it was pretty cool.
That is pretty cool. Yeah, it was a friendlier time, and it was easier to reach out to people and communicate with them. Now we have so much communication happening continuously that it's not as easy as it was.
It's easier but harder at the same time. Oh well. But no, very cool. That's right. I totally forgot about Romeo and Juliet. We just ask Lloyd Kaufman to be on one of your programs.
Yeah, I think I'm going to do that. I'm going to reach out to him and see if he's still with Michael. Michael was his partner. I don't remember Michael's last name.
Hold on. I've got Wikipedia. Gans or something. Hold on. Michael Hurst.
Michael Hurst, yeah. And
I knew there was a Z in there.
The Troma HQ, they moved it now, but it used to be in Hell's Kitchen in New York City. So that was for like maybe a year and a half, my home away from home. So if it wasn't anywhere else doing something I needed to be doing, I'd be hanging out at Troma. It was really an interesting place, and they had lots of interesting movies, and they were very open to doing things creatively. When we had the Lake Placid Film Forum, I had gotten invited there as press, but I had no show because September 11th had happened and all the advertising had drawn up. So I had no show. I made a couple of specials, and that didn't really lead anywhere. And then I got a call from Lake Placid Film Forum inviting me up there as press. So I don't know who made that suggestion to them, but they said, can you bring, how many people are you going to bring? So I said, around a dozen, so I said, okay. So I called everybody I knew. PBS in New York and New Jersey, because I'd done stuff with PBS. They were willing to hook me up with the PBS over there to help me with shooting and editing. And, again, these were different times. But I got together a crew of, I think I only knew one person vaguely a little bit, and we made a 6-minute film, and Lloyd Kaufman showed it during the film festival. And it was a film of us coming to the film festival. So we shot ourselves in the film festival, and then Lloyd showed it during the Troma times of the film festival. So it was pretty exciting.
Oh, very cool. I know you have a lot of tapes and stuff around of that era, so I still hope someday you can if it hasn't been flooded, that you can get that stuff released.
I hope so too. That was always an intention of mine. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't happen, I have my memories, and other people have the memories too. And some of the folks that were around then are no longer around, so they're greatly missed.
That's why you need a chronicler, just like what we talked about earlier from DragonHeart with Pete's character of Brother Gilbert. You need a Brother Gilbert to chronicle your adventures. Well, you know what? You're doing it right now with your podcasts.
With my podcast. And unfortunately, Black Wolf passed on during the COVID pandemic pretty early on. He was an extraordinary person, very troubled, but very extraordinary. And his comedic timing, I don't know if you've ever heard him on the Triumph, the Insult Comic Dog album. Yeah, that's pure Black Wolf. His comedic timing was perfect.
Oh, very cool. Yeah, I knew him from the Triumph stuff.
Yeah, when I had my first show, which was a studio show, like I guess a talk show type of thing, he called that he'd written a poem about Hrothgar's Hall that I inspired. So I had him on the show, and he read this long, epic type of poem that somehow tied me into Beowulf. It was pretty interesting. So I had him back like a few other times because he was just so different. And then he became a regular. So he became like he'd be in like every show somewhere.
Oh, very cool. Sorry that he passed away. I know you announced that a while ago, but that's still sad.
And I apologize for sharing all these memories during your show.
No, why are you apologizing? I always keep bugging you to release your tapes and stuff because you had a lot of Thor adventures. Do it.
Now I'm having Hercules adventures, so the fun continues. And I will be speaking with you and Michelle very shortly because I'm evolving the shows a little bit more in the next few months. So I will share with you my thoughts. I will hear your thoughts, and let's do something a little different. We've already evolved it past Black Talk Radio onto Zoom and YouTube. So I have other things in mind as well.
Well, we look forward, and also looking forward to continue Scholars of the Edge of Time as well. We've got August. We'll have to pick out another movie to talk to you about with, and hopefully Michelle can be here for it too.
I hope so, and I'm looking forward to it. And how can people enter the wonderful world of Nicholas Dayak and Michelle Brittany?
All right, I'll pretend to be Michelle. So Michelle, her website's Michelle Brittany. That's Michelle with 1L.com. And she has, links there to like her Amazon page and stuff like that. So you could see her work. And we have a podcast called HP Lovecast. That's easily Googled, that we update twice a month, in addition to our Scholars in the Edge of Time appearance. So we're busy with the podcasting. And then my website is nickdayak.com. And from there, I update it at least once a week with news of what's going on in the Sordid Sandal world, but also the projects and stuff I'm working on. And I also keep a giant index of all the podcasts I'm a part of, so all of our Scholars in the Edge of Time is there too. So if folks ever want to go back and revisit some of our cool dialogues and musings on Sordid Planet and Sandal movies with you, they're all there.
Incredibly awesome, and you're always doing incredible things. So I'm very honored that we're on this journey together. And I want to thank all our viewers who will be watching this on YouTube and joining us in our conversation. Until next time, this is all of us wishing all of you joyous journeys and amazing adventures. Zoom has changed the buttons a little bit, so it might take me a minute or so to sign out. Let's see what happens if I press this. No, that's emojis now. And that's not it. And also they've made it very easy to disappear from the.
Oh no.
I can't see anything.
Oh no. I know when for our podcast, Michelle sent out some Zoom invites and the timing gets messed up on them. So, I mean, it just becomes cumbersome sometimes. At work, when we use Zoom, it's just one button click and we're in it. So
Now it's trying to sell me Zoom 1. And I don't know how to sign out. That's not very good.
Well, at the bottom right should be a red leave button. And that
No,
will,
I lost the screen altogether.
oh,
I'm
oh,
still connected, but it took me to advertisements for other Zoom services. And everything I click on brings me further away from our conversation.
well, if you want, I will take off and maybe that will close it on your end.
Okay,
I'll do that. So I'll say bye. It's good to see you, Hercules. I hope you have a great rest of the month, and we'll see you in August. We'll have more
Same here.
adventures stuff for you.
Be well. Have a wonderful evening.
You too. Cheers.
Cheers.